Alright, I want to briefly go over the build I've been playing since Fangs of Asterkarn has dropped. This is going to be a Reaver, which is a Nightblade and a Berserker together, so using the new class in some different way. The primary thing they overlap with is Cold and Bleed with a little bit of Pierce, but we are going to be a pure Cold build, converting all Pierce and Bleed and stuff like that to Cold. So the main things we're going to do, we'll take a look at the Nightblade line first. We're going to be using the dual blade line. We have 1 point here, but that's not really all that important. You get 7 extra from the gear. The main things we're going to look at are quick cut. So this is straight cold damage with a lot from the main hand and offhand, plus 51% crit damage from it. The next thing is going to be Whirling Death, which is another default weapon attack ability with cold damage on it, and it also modifies the main hand and offhand damage. And the third thing is going to be Execution. This is the big one. It gives us 300 main and offhand, which is going to be about 32,000 apiece. It deals 4,800 cold damage, but it also reduces the enemy's health by 30%. This is going to be the main thing we use to deal damage to trash mobs and clear them out. When it comes to stronger things like bosses and nemesis, Shadow Strike is going to be our main damage dealer there. It deals 538% damage for main and offhand, deals some cold damage. It does stun the target and it gives us a movement speed increase, which is nice in case you want to get out of dodge real quick, or if you're about to die, you can click to use this and Shadow Strike out. Just another kind of dodging ability. We're going to have this be modified by Nightfall, which is the centerpiece basically. It deals another 100% main and offhand, but it deals 35,000 frostburn damage over 3 seconds and gives us 17% attack converted to health. And you're going to see as we go through this build that there are a lot of small ways that we keep gaining life to sustain us into a fight. And then the last thing is that it has about a 56% chance to put the target to sleep, which will give us another moment to kind of take a breath. As for resist reduction, we have Veil of Shadows being modified by Night's Chill. So Veil of Shadows decreases the offensive ability and the total speed of whatever your target is. The Night's Chill is incredibly important. It deals some cold damage, some frostburn damage, but also gives a minus 30% cold reduction, and that's huge. Basically, all damage you do is just 30% more. And that's about it for the Nightblade line here. We're going to go to the Berserker. For the Berserker, since we're doing a lot of regular weapon attacks with default attacks, we're going to go with Avalanche, which gives us 120 main and offhand and a little extra cold damage on hit. Now, because Nightblade historically has been a very weak class when it comes to survivability, Berserker helps to lift that up a little bit. So we have Rallying Cry here, and this is going to restore 30% of our health, give us a little bit of offensive ability and movement speed. Kind of helps to really finish off something if you're fighting it, or get out of dodge if you need to. Now, going back to the Night's Chill here with the cold reduction, we have another thing called Bone Chilling Cry, and this is you're going to start the fight with this. This is going to reduce the defensive ability further and then give another 15% cold resist. Now, we're doing a lot of regular normal auto attacks, and this means we can use Onslaught as our default attack, and everything else is going to trigger from that. What Onslaught does is it gives us 158% main hand damage with a little bit of extra cold damage. But the important thing is that you can stack Onslaught, which means the next time you use an activated ability, you're going to get a big damage increase from that. So you can see I have 7 stacks of Onslaught, gives 105% damage increase, and you're going to be proccing that with Shadow Strike and the modifier for Nightfall together, which is going to increase basically double damage on all these huge numbers, all these 34, 35,000 numbers. And then we have Onslaught modified by Endless Rage, which gives us more Onslaught stacks. The base is 5, but this is going to give us 7, and it also gives us a little extra cold damage. Moving down, we have uh, Emotox Pact, and this gives us an AoE radius ability that deals some cold damage and gives us more defensive ability and armor. That's going to be modified by Icebound, which is going to further increase the AoE with cold and frostburn and give us a little poison and vitality. For the exclusive skill here, it's going to be Heart of Asterkarn, which is going to give us flat damage for cold, increase the cold and frostburn, and then give us some of the physical damage converted to cold, a little extra offensive ability, and some slow resist. So it really does a whole lot. It's really important to this build. And then moving down towards the bottom, the last two we have to look at are going to be survival skills as well. This one here, whenever you get a critical blow, you're going to restore 14% of your health per second over 3 seconds, and it's going to give you a little extra energy. And then the last one here is going to be Untamed Rage. This is really important for survivability and finishing a fight. Whenever your health drops below 50%, you're going to get a 33% damage reduction and then a 20% offensive ability increase. So this is going to let you finish off something if you're close to dying. You're going to get that damage absorption and then have increased damage being done. And that about wraps up all of the skills for the Nightblade and Berserker tree. Now, the next thing we're going to take a look at briefly is going to be the devotion tree. We're going to start from top to bottom here. I haven't totally figured this out yet, but I'm pretty happy where it's at. I think in the end, I'm going to try to make it down here to Leviathan because it really does have a strong ability. Whirlpool is one of the strongest, and overall, Leviathan is just really strong when it comes to Frostburn, Freeze, and Cold. But looking from the top here, we are going to use the Tsunami constellation, and Tsunami gives you cold and frostburn damage over time. It also has a chance to fumble and impair the aim, so it gives you some damage and a little bit of utility. We're going to run Tortoise here because Nightblade is quite squishy. We're going to take Turtle Shell as the ability here. We're going to run Ghoul, which is going to give us more of the attack damage converted to health and increase our health regeneration. For Ghoulish Hunger, whenever you drop below 45% health, you gain a 100% chance to proc this. And if you remember, the last ability that we looked at for the Berserker also triggered about 45%. So you're going to get two abilities there whenever you're close to death, and they're going to basically make you unkillable as long as they're on cooldown. And this one increases your attack damage converted to health by 80%, and it also increases your healing effectiveness by 40%. Gives you 22% more attack speed and 22% more casting speed, and importantly, 18% physical resist. There's more that resist that is kind of hard to find. And then moving on from Ghoul, we're going to go to the Spider, which is just a general kind of constellation with a little bit of defensiveness, a little bit of attack speed, a little bit of cunning, and importantly in this case it gives you 6 for the green on completion, which is what I needed to go down. After that, we are going to take a look at the Mistress, and the main thing here is going to be Rumors, and we have this one bound to Avalanche. What this does is it gives another 23% cold resist reduction, and also drops their offensive ability plus a little bit of cold damage. So if you remember, we have 2 ways previously to reduce the cold resistance, and now we have another way. I think summing all this up, you get about like 65 or 70% total cold resist, and that puts most of the bosses and monsters you're going to fight way down into the negative. And if we go over here, we're going to go to the Scythe, which is just a general constellation for survivability, very important. And the same thing with these two here. Throne is going to give you some defensive ability, some Aether reduction, some freeze duration, all of these things that are good in high SR that you'll die by if you end up getting stunned for too long. We're taking a look at Crown as well, a little extra elemental frost damage, but mostly here for elemental storm. because this gives you an AoE that deals some frost damage over time, but also, more importantly, it deals a reduction in the target's elemental resist, which is going to be hit by cold. So that's going to be our fourth way to reduce the resistances. And that about sums it up here. That was a quick walkthrough of everything. I'll kind of zoom out to show you what I have if you want to take a further look at it. But this will probably be modified a little bit over time later on. The last thing we're going to be looking at is the gear here, and I'll give you a quick rundown of it. We're going to be using the Deathmarked Shadow set, and the main reason is because this set has a lot of conversion to cold and also attack damage converted to health. So if we take a look at the first main hand weapon, we get 5% attack damage converted to health, which is going to, again, add up to all those little bits of chip health that we get over time. The physical damage converted to health is going to be good because you're always going to be doing a little bit of physical damage. We get 14% attack speed, and the more we attack, the more we get our health back, the more we can stay in to the fight. The set bonuses we'll take a quick look at here is for 2, we get some cold and frostburn damage. For 3, we get some defensive and attack speed. 4, we get 2 plus to all Nightblade skills. And for 5, which is really good, a lot of the skills for Nightblade have pierce damage tied to them, and that converts a portion of that to cold. And then on top of that, we get an extra 12% physical resist, and that's hard to come by. I think most of the time, I think builds hover somewhere around 15 to 25, so we're sitting at 17 right now. And then when we drop below 45%, remember we get those 2 abilities that proc, and that pulls us up to like the high 30s. And then this also gives us Reaper's Mark, which is a 30% chance on critical hits to further reduce the cold resistance by another 18%. And we'll just go through quickly and look at some of the pieces and why they're important. This gives you +2 to Quick Cut and +3 to Whirling Death, which is the abilities that proc from the normal auto attacks. And then moving on to the legs, which are not part of the set, it gives us some cold damage, a good chunk of health, a little bit of a movement speed, but importantly, another 5% physical resist, and then +2 to Shadow Strike and +2 to Bone Chilling Cry. There's also the granted ability whenever you hit, you have a 25% chance to knock down the enemy, and that's very strong because it gives you more of a chance for your HP procs to happen while they're unable to hit you. Looking at the rings, we have 2 of the same rings. They give you some cold damage, and they also give you 4% offensive ability and 3% total speed, +2 to Shadow Strike. The most important thing I would probably say here is that it gives you Elemental Force as a 10% attack chance, and that deals some cold damage and also deals Frostburn over time, but gives you another 8% attack damage converted to health. So you can see we've got 4 or 5 different ways that we're constantly gaining little bits of health over time. Moving on to the helmet, we got another 4% converted to health, and then +2 to dual blades and +3 to quick cuts. For the amulet, we're going to be using the ice trap, and this is another 10% physical damage converted to cold. It gives us 36% reduction to being frozen, which is good in high SRs because you will get frozen and stunned and you will die. And it also gives us 5% max cold resist, which is always nice. +2 to Night's Chill. And then the granted skill is Rim of Fire, which deals some frost damage over time and then slows their movement down. We're going to go to the offhand now, and we get a further 3% attack damage here, 14% physical converted to cold, another 14% attack, and then +3 to Whirling Death. So you can see we really have a lot of the same things that are being multiplied by each piece, and it becomes quite a bit. A lot, even though it's only 3 here, 4 there. When you sum it up, it's a lot. For the shoulders, the important things here are going to be 2 to dual blades and 2 to shadow dance. There are some abilities that the Nightblade has that use acid, and that would convert that to cold, but in this build we don't use any of those. So the next thing we have are the Scar Makers, which aren't part of the set, but they are new to Fangs of Asterkarn, and this is a really important part of this set. The main things being the 13% attack speed and the 9% chance to not consume your onslaught stacks. So if you're at 7 stacks, you can Shadow Strike and then not have to worry about building up those stacks again to Shadow Strike immediately uh, right after that, and it's a huge amount of burst damage. On top of that, a lot of these skills like Endless Rage, Avalanche, and Nightfall, we're using all of those. It deals another 40% weapon damage on top for Shadow Strike. It adds more cold damage to Onslaught, and then it increases the chance for Avalanche to be used by 10%. It really hits so many aspects of the build that we're running that this is a must-have for this set. For the boots, we're going to be doing the Windborne Greaves, and this gives us a little bit of movement speed, a little bit of defensive ability, and 42% slow resist, which is important if you're trying to get out of a poison or a fire area to come and heal up. It gives us 2 to Shadow Strike. And then the Howling Wind ability deals a little bit of frost burn damage over time. But what's really nice is the 33% chance to freeze. And when we watch the gameplay video, you're going to see how often the targets get frozen, which allows me to heal up and stop taking damage. For the last few pieces, the metal we have is going to be the Lightbringer's Ilgor Eternal Curse of Frostbite. This is going to be a monster infrequent item. Gives you quite a bit of cold and frostburn damage. It's nice. It also gives you 5% health and spirit, 5% casting speed, and a lesser known thing is 25% light radius, which isn't really all that important. But sometimes when you're running SR, you end up getting on those really dark maps, and you can waste time trying to figure out exactly where you are. But that's a nice little addition. It also gives +3 to Onslaught, which is really important, and then 12% weapon damage increase to Onslaught. For the belt here, this is a really strong item, and it's new in Fangs. Um, I would definitely say it's probably right up there with the gloves. You kind of do need this, or at least some version of it. Since it's a monster infrequent, you're going to roll a suffix and a prefix. But it gives you a good amount of cold and frostburn with increased duration. If there was any vitality damage going on, we would get a further conversion to cold damage for there. Gives you some spirit, some offense, and it has a really good resist profile. Like 55% Aether resist is nothing to scoff at, but it further reduces your freeze duration and your slow duration. It gives us +2 to Shadow Strike and +1 to all Nightblade skills. It just has a whole lot packed into one package. Well, that's going to be it for the aspects of the build. Let's go jump into the Shattered Realms and take a look at how we do. So a little bit scuffed, but that is SR32 done. But not bad considering that this doesn't have any of the new FOA augmentations or upgrades or anything like that on the gear. If you put those on there, this thing will be cruising through probably up to around 36, maybe even 40. But I will be testing that out and getting that stuff done once I get all the materials together. But if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.